I'm John Batchelor. This is the John Batchelor Show. Iran, the P5+1, and Iran, the suspect secret nuclear weapons program. Where we are right now is on the eve of the June 30th deadline. It might move, it might not. In any event, in the event there is a deal, what happens? What does the inspection look like? What do the guarantees look like? Claudia Rosett, writing most recently at Forbes.com, introduces us into an extremely clumsy acronym that exists. It's called INCSNA. It stands for something even more preposterous. It's a law, Congress, the Iran Nuclear and Syria Non-Proliferation Act. Claudia, very good evening to you. Okay, you've written about it. Now you've got to explain it. INCSNA, what does it do and what has it achieved? Good evening to you.
Good evening, John. For my sins, let me explain INCSNA. This is an act that Congress passed years ago and has amended to include the three worst, most virulent rogue proliferators on the planet, Iran, North Korea, and Syria. And the idea is that every 6 months, the State Department is required by law, keep your eye on that, required by law, to report to Congress on any individuals they have identified as involved in trafficking in either conventional or weapons of mass destruction. So anything from guns to nuclear bombs to missile parts to you name it, to or from any of these countries, Iran, North Korea, and Syria. And Congress, what this then does is the president is then supposed to impose sanctions on any individuals. It also applies to companies identified by the State Department under this law. And if the president chooses not to impose sanctions, then he must explain to Congress in writing why not. In other words, it was designed to give Congress some leverage in making sure that the administration, that the executive branch actually imposed sanctions on traffickers in weapons among this trio of proliferating tyrannies, Iran, Syria, and North Korea. That's the aim, John, but that's not how it's been working.
Yes, there's the Government Accountability Office has a report, and the report says that, everybody, when you let your term paper go to the last moment and you do it an overnighter, well, they've been doing a lot of overnighters at the State Department, but 6 months, 3 months, 6 months, very late overnighters. Who's supervising this, Claudia?
Well, John Kerry, the same man who's now in Vienna hoping to clinch a nuclear deal with the Iranians, on which the administration is making similar promises and is going to be required by law, if a deal really comes out of this, to report every 6 months to Congress, in which, once again, timely reporting is vital. John Kerry is in charge of this. How has this actually, the Secretary of State takes the job. The president is officially responsible. He delegates to the Secretary of State. And, John, the way that this has been working in practice is that the State Department is not only filing reports that are, within the most recent case, a 22-month lag for a report required every 6 months, but that report itself was out of date by more than 3 years. So at this point, State has such a backlog in reporting. It's not just that it's not timely. It's that while North Korea has proceeded to carry out another nuclear test, while Syria has used chemical weapons on its own people, while Iran has embarked on these nuclear talks, while continuing to smuggle weapons, none of this has figured in any State Department reports to Congress as required under law, because the State Department hasn't yet arrived at that period in time. They're still in the Paleolithic era, reporting on the year 2011. With any luck, sometime later this year or maybe next year, they'll work around to the year 2012.
The civil war in Syria didn't start till 2011. So apparently the State Department doesn't know about it yet. That's in the future?
Well, it knows about that year because the most recent report to Congress, which was submitted last December, covered the calendar year 2011.
Oh, good.
But State doesn't release, they let them stack up. They don't release the most recent timely information. They work sequentially through past years, and they take a very long time because they have a bureaucratic process that I find akin to the tar pits that swallowed dinosaurs, to release these, and they won't release a report until they're satisfied that everything in it is correct. The result, for instance, is The most recent year they've worked up to is 2011, and they're not going to tip out anything, within the past year or so for years to come. And when they did produce a report on 2011 and submit that almost 2 years after the previous report last December, here's how it then works. They identified for North Korea, which has been having a very lively time on the proliferation front, precisely one company, John. If states' report to Congress is accurate, if we're to regard these as accurate and timely, you'll be relieved to know that there is just one company in North Korea that has been handling all of North Korea's proliferation traffic, at least as far as North Korean actors involved in this. It's absurd.
Let's connect this to Iran.
Misleading.
Let's connect this to Iran, because that's the context of what you're presenting to us. The suspect secret nuclear weapons program, presuming it comes to fruition and there's a deal, it will be something like this that is charged to reporting to Congress every 6 months about Iran's conduct, not only with regard to sneaking around making nuclear fuel, but arms smuggling and proliferation, missile proliferation, exchanges with North Korea. Is that correct, Claudia?
That's correct. And the State Department has a precedent. This is one of the most outrageous, but on a whole series of reports required by law, not optional, required by law, on terrorism, on human rights. They've been late by staggering intervals. In fact, on many of them, most of the time late under the Obama administration.
And this would be the way Congress watches the conduct that it has agreed to, presuming this is all hypothetical, nothing actually has happened, but Congress has a checkoff on the deal. So afterwards, presuming there's a deal, presuming Congress agrees to it, presuming the president enjoys peace lap, all of that, it's the State Department to report to the Congress to know whether the deal's been acted upon in good faith, and it wouldn't come from any other part of the State Department. It would be INCSNA.
Well, it would be the same part of the State Department that monitors this kind of thing. It would be, and basically, it's the Deputy Secretary of State who's hands-on supposed to be dealing with this, who we were told at a congressional hearing earlier this month, one of these reports sat on his desk awaiting approval for more than a year. So we're talking about, under the Iran deal, they're talking about trying to buy at immense cost a potential breakout time of a year. Well, that's less than the time that one of these reports on Iran, Syria, North Korean proliferation sat on the desk of the Deputy Secretary of State recently waiting for approval. So Congress, and the fact that this is required by law, appears to be of no interest to the State Department. When they make excuses, they don't mention that. They mention that they like to spend a lot of time proofreading the reports.
Claudia Rosett of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy.